Going.
That's in, yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Right, we're back, another episode, Make It Mastermind podcast. This week we do have another special guest. We've got Rick Stevens.
Hi guys.
Yeah, famous for probably SAS Who Dares Wins, right? I guess. Do you want to give people a bit of an intro, a bit of background, where you're from, and we'll start digging into it.
So yeah, I'm from Manchester, 34 years old now. Yeah, barrister, day job. Obviously, what most people know me for is being on SAS Who Dares Wins, and from social media, doing sort of extreme fitness challenges and stuff. Usually raising money for Kidscape, which is a charity for which I'm an ambassador. Yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So what drove you into looking to study law when you were from growing up? What focused you into that?
So to be honest, I kind of fell into it, which sounds a bit of a weird thing to say because obviously it's quite a defined career path. You know, not many people sort of, just rock up and become a barrister. And I obviously didn't just rock up and become a barrister. It's quite a obviously dedicated course. But no one really expected me to do that well at school. Like when I was about 15, 16, so when I was coming up to my GCSEs, I was pretty much bottom of the class in everything, which wasn't because I was stupid. I checked out of school. Like I just completely checked out the whole process. And then kind of in the run up to my GCSEs, I thought to myself, actually I need to pull my finger out here. I've kind of checked out of this whole process here for the last 4 or 5 years for various reasons. And I thought, actually, if I apply myself now, it's not too late. And so sort of, a few months, maybe 6 months before sort of the exams were coming up, all of a sudden I just kind of got my head into the game and put my head down and revised and got good grades, which was to everybody's surprise really. And then that kind of carried on. So from being the bottom of the class, by the time I finished my A-levels after sixth form, I was top of the class from just really applying myself, having never really applied myself before. So, and then at that point I was like, well, what can I do with good grades? I hadn't really picked my subjects for anything in particular, so I couldn't do medicine because you kind of had to know what you wanted to do from a very young age to do that and do all the sciences and stuff. I hadn't really done any of that. So I thought, well, what else can earn a decent amount of money? I'll become a lawyer. So yeah, kind of how I got into it and just followed that career path.
Okay. So what actually was the spark for you to say, fuck, I need to pull my finger out here?
So during school, as you probably know from the TV show, I was pretty badly bullied. It started sort of in secondary school. And yeah, it carried on for a number of years, and as a result of that, you can kind of withdraw and you start to develop a bit of a victim's mindset about things, and you start not caring about stuff, because you kind of feel like, woe is me, something's going wrong in my life, so I'm just gonna, check out because no one cares about me. It's kind of, you're not worried about whether you're getting positive or negative attention. You just want attention. You want someone to notice you and what that you're suffering. So when people don't notice that through positive things, you start developing a negative mindset towards things, and so you start acting out to try and get that attention, and you usually get more attention through doing negative things than you do through doing positive things when you're a kid. So I was disruptive at school. I was always fighting. I was just an angry kid really, and so for that reason I kind of just checked out of the whole education process. Hadn't really engaged myself at all. I knew I was bright, but I hadn't engaged with it at all. And then it kind of got to, in the run up to the exams, I thought, what, I can either let these people win here, and that'll, I'll just be a victim my whole life, as in, and I'll have excuses as to why it didn't work out for me, or actually I can take responsibility for it, take ownership for my own situation, apply myself, and then there's no excuses. And also it's a case of, what better way to sort of show someone that they can't hurt you and to exceed any expectations and absolutely smash it out of the park in comparison to them. Once you've surpassed somebody and you've literally left them in the dust, like what more can they do? Like if they try and criticize you or hurt you or do you down in the eyes of other people, all of a sudden you've got a benchmark. You can say, well, you're a loser at the end of the day. Like, look what I've achieved. And kind of that was my motivation. So to be able to just have something tangible to show that I'd achieved.
Yeah.
So to the side of the studies, then, were you an active kid? Were you doing any exercise?
So I was always good at sports. So since being a kid, I'd always been really good at running, athletics, cross country, all that sort of stuff. And I actually run at quite a high level. I've been invited to run for Sale Harriers, which is like a big running club in Manchester. I would do school and national level running. And I'd always be picked up by scouts and invited to come along and train with different running clubs. So I was always good at that. But again, it's something I kind of checked out of because of what was going on. It affected all areas of my sort of childhood, really. And it's very easy to just withdraw from stuff because your confidence is affected. And so despite that I was good at certain stuff, I just withdraw from that as well because it's like, well, what's the point? You start to develop a negative mindset, which you get into sort of a feedback loop of negativity, and that was difficult because you start doing things that you actually enjoyed as well. So I was always quite a sporty kid, and I was really good at sports. But I actually over the years withdrew from doing it because it just felt like, oh, what's the point? Which is obviously the wrong way to think about things, and my mindset subsequently has changed over the years in relation to that.
Yeah, so when you talk about the getting into that negative loop of withdrawing from stuff, like, how did you go about addressing it? Did you confide in anyone? Did you hold it in? How did you deal with it? And then how did you go about addressing it?
So for a long time I just held it in and just thought nothing's gonna matter, nothing's gonna change. And also when you're a kid and at the end of the day you just want to be accepted, you just want to be liked by people, and that doesn't necessarily always change for people as they grow up. Everybody wants to be accepted and liked by other people. People care what other people think about them. The majority of people do, no matter what they say. And particularly when someone is bullying you start to crave it even more. Like, you want to be accepted even more because you're not being accepted. But as a result of that, you try and start doing things in order to try and make people like you more, and often that just draws more attention to you and it creates more problems going forward. And you don't want to admit to anybody that this is happening because you feel as if people will like you if you're strong. If you admit to not being strong, people won't like you, and the problem that you've got is that people don't like you. So how can you solve a problem of people not liking you and being nasty to you by showing weakness? That's the sort of thought process that goes through your head. So you therefore think, well, I have to put up with this and sort it out myself, because if I confide in somebody else, it'll just compound the problem. So for a long time, I didn't confide in anybody. Didn't confide in my parents. My sister was quite a bit older, so she'd gone off to university by the time this had started happening. And I spent quite a lot of time at home on my own because my parents were running businesses. So I'd quite often get in from school and not see anyone necessarily until the next morning, and that sort of stuff. So it became quite easy to withdraw and not seek that help. And also in my head, it was a case of, well, if you seek this help, it's going to just make the problem worse. Eventually I did. I sort of confided in a couple of people, including some teachers at school, and at that point it felt like a massive weight off my shoulders, as if this is going to change, like tomorrow something's going to change. And in a way I felt like I was kind of past the responsibility. I took this load and gave it to somebody else. And you kind of get in my head I was thinking, do you know what, like, the cavalry's going to turn up, this is going to get sorted, like, I've told somebody now, like, great, this is all going to change. And then nothing changed. Like, nothing changed. Absolutely nothing. In fact, if anything, it got worse. And at that moment in time, I realised, you know what? No one's coming to help you. Like, no one is coming. The cavalry isn't coming. You're on your own. Like, you can either just lie down now and just let them walk over you, and that's it. And just, by the time they're finished with you, you're going to be a shell. It's going to keep eroding your self-confidence, your self-esteem. Or you can do something positive. You can pour all this negative energy, because I was really angry, upset, aggressive. You can pour all this into something positive. If you pour it into something positive, then you can create something bigger than this situation. You can create something bigger than this situation, and all of a sudden they don't matter anymore. And that's kind of what I did. I thought, what can I do to make myself successful? And in that moment in time, what can you do as a 14, 15-year-old kid. You're at school, so what can you pour your energies into? You can pour your energies into school, you can pour your energies into sport, you can join the rugby team, you can get back into athletics. You can do all those things and become just extremely successful. Whatever opportunity comes your way, just become extremely successful, because no one's picking at the guy. And in adult life, everybody looks up to the guy who's driving around in a Ferrari. Everybody looks up to the guy who's rocking a solid gold Rolex, etc. Nobody's going, oh, what a loser, because at the end of the day you can't hurt them, because they've elevated themselves into what I like to call a fuck you position, where you can just say fuck you to anyone, because you're in a position whereby no matter, somebody can't put you down. Someone can't make you do something, because you're in a position to say, you know what, I'm in control of this now, so fuck you.
Yeah, nice. So when you went into studies, that motivation carried through. Was that always something that's in the back of your mind? That was always a driver, like, oh, you've got a deadline you've got to meet. Yeah. That's the thing that's like, do you know what? I've kind of come too far now to not keep pushing and keep progressing and keep working hard at my studies to get where you want to be.
So I think the thing which kind of stuck with me, and this is the reason why I always say, I would not now change that area of my life and that time in my life, because it moulded who I am now, it moulded my mindset at that time, which I've carried forward, is that it gave me a reason to do stuff in order to, and it's probably the wrong reason, and over time obviously I've refined this whole mindset, but it gave me a reason as to why I had to do it. So, I remember, going from being a kid in the bottom of the class to all of a sudden being a kid at the top of the class and getting, the best grades. And I regimented myself and committed to a process of succeeding where I wanted to succeed, because I wanted to show other people. Now, that probably wasn't the right motivation. I've since realised that probably wasn't the right motivation, but that's the motivation I had at the time. That I'm going to show you that what you have said about me, what you've done to me, like what you might think of me, in fact, I'm so much more than that. And in fact, I'm going to show you that I can do everything that you can't. And that was my motivation at the time, which is a negative emotion, but it's turning into a positive situation.
Yeah, do you know what? So that's come up on the podcast a lot, is that negativity or kind of negative surroundings at times, or focus towards you, is one of the biggest drivers for people, isn't it? Mm-hmm. A lot of fighters seem to use it, like to focus in on something to move forward in a positive light. But to give people a bit of perspective on just how driven you were at that time, how long does it take to go from A levels to be a barrister? Because that's quite am I right in saying it's quite a long period of time
so it's 3 years undergraduate course. Then it's 1 to 2 years postgraduate, depending on whether you're able to fund it part-time or you can do it full-time. And if you do it in a year, it's a lot. So those are your bar exams. So you do your undergraduate law degree and do your bar exams over 1 or 2 years. Then after that, you do what's called a pupillage, which is sort of an apprenticeship under the supervision of another barrister for a year. So in total, it's sort of either a 5 or 6 year process. And that's if you can get straight from undergrad onto the bar course. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes people have to take a year in order to get a place. After that, very few people go straight from bar exams to pupillage, because there's 5,000 people qualifying as barristers per year, or passing the bar exams per year, and then there's only sort of 2, maybe 300 maximum pupillages going per year. And for every year that passes, 5,000 people qualify, and your qualification remains valid for 5 years. So at any one time, you've got 25,000 people having qualified, less the 200 to 300 people a year that are getting pupillage. So there's a backlog of probably 24,000 people are all going for a limited number of pupillages every year. So I mean, just to give you a lot of people don't get it. So from my course, I think out of 120 people that actually passed the course in my year, probably only 10 people ended up getting pupillage, and that wasn't straight away. That was over the course of the 5 years they remained valid. And over that period of time, a lot of people obviously think, I'll send off an application here, I'll send off an application now, I didn't get it, woe is me, like maybe I'll do something else. And a lot of people drift away and do something else. I probably sent 150 applications, had 13 first interviews, got rejected at every single one. So either at the paper stage or first interviews got rejected. And it wasn't until sort of, I think 13 and 14 were the interviews where I actually got offered a job. So it took, I didn't even get second round interviews. I got knocked back. I think it was either 12 or 13 times, just knocked back. As in went, no, you're not right.
And what kept you so resilient throughout that time? Was it just eyes on the prize, or?
Yeah, so I set out in my mind that this was what was going to happen. And it was, whatever happened, that was what was going to happen. You know, people talk about it, don't they? It's like, you know, doors don't just necessarily open for you. Sometimes you've got to kick them in. So I had the qualifications. You know, you're looking at it and you think, hang on a second, yeah, I've got straight A's at A level. Like, everyone said I couldn't do that. And then I've gone to university and I've got gone to a top university and got a top degree. People didn't expect me to get that. And then I've, you know, gone and done the bar exams, and I finished, you know, within the top 5 or 6 people in my year out of 120 people. People didn't expect I'd be able to do that. And now you're telling me I'm not good enough? Like, nah, this doesn't seem right. You know, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. If you don't take me, someone's going to take me, because I'm going to knock on enough doors. Somebody's going to realise that I'm of value here. And that's kind of the way I approached it, which is that it was a challenge. This is something I tend to do like throughout my life, and I know if I look back now, perhaps I didn't realise what I was doing at the time. If someone puts an obstacle in the way, you can either look at it as an obstacle or you can look at it as a challenge. It's like when you get a kid and you tell them to do something, they don't want to do it. If you turn it into a game, then all of a sudden, you know, it becomes a challenge and the kid wants to do it. So that's what I've tried to do sort of throughout life, and still do now, which is turn an obstacle that someone want to get, do you know what, that's too much work, and turn it into a challenge, so that when you actually overcome it, you get this sense of a high, you know, so you're turning it into you know, basically an adrenaline rush, you know, you turn it into a challenge, and when you reach your goal, you get a level of self-satisfaction which you can't really beat. So it's using those obstacles and turning into challenges, and that's kind of how I approached it with my law degree and my becoming a barrister. Yeah.
And when you got to be a barrister, did you ever sit around and think, like, all right, what now, what's next? Because that was a big goal for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it's quite common when you talk or when you see people. We always mention, like, Tyson Fury is like the best example. Won everything, heavyweight champion of the world, and that's when his life went to shit, because he reached that goal and he was like, oh, like, you can't see past that. Like, what does life look like after that? Did you?
Well, to be honest, I mean, at that point in time, you know, you're still the bottom rung on the ladder. There's rungs and rungs and rungs to go. And to be honest, like, I'm not even a tenth of the way up the ladder that I could go. Do you know what I mean? I'm now deciding to take a slightly different path, take on some different challenges. But when you qualify, you're still at the bottom of the pile. You know, you might be at the top of the pile of the people that you've trained with and the people that you've qualified through the university and the courses with, but you're at the bottom of the pack in terms of the profession. So it's not as if, you know, all of a sudden you just walk in and you're like, I'm arrived. You walk in and they're like, right, there is the shittest case in the furthest flung court that you could possibly go to, and it's worth nothing and it pays even less. Right, off you go. You know, and you tip up to court and you rock in with your, you know, box fresh suit on, you know, and your shoes dead shiny, and you got your brand new Mont Blanc pen that you bought yourself because you think you've arrived, and your client turns up and goes, "Who the fuck are you?" And you go, "I'm your barrister," and they go, looking behind you for, you know, someone who isn't fresh out at university, and you start there and you're thinking, this isn't what I thought it would be like. Like, hang on a sec, you know, yeah, I'm the barrister, and they're looking at you like, right, okay, I need to pay more in future, don't I, because you're a fucking joke. And that's how it starts. You don't know what you're doing, so you have to, you know, you think you know what you're doing, you rock up, and your first day, your first few days, your first few years, you rock up and you're like, right, I know what I'm doing, and all of a sudden you realise you know nothing, and then that's where you learn it all. It's the same in every job. You learn nothing really. Your qualifications get you to the start line, then after that you start learning how to do the job.
Yeah. Being a barrister, what has it taught you the most?
To be honest, it's taught me how to sort of communicate with people, I think, pretty well, because I have quite a broad range of people that I sort of meet on a day-to-day basis, and also just the accountability that you have, because they're bringing their problems to you to sort out in the most formal of ways in an environment which is alien to 99.9% of the population. You know, if you're in court regularly and you're not a barrister, you probably need to look at your life. So most people just don't get there that frequently. You know what I mean? If they're there, it's for a serious problem. And if you find yourself in that position, you're gonna have to rely on the person who knows that process. It's a bit like putting your hands, in the doctor. You go in for a surgery and you're putting your faith in the hands of the doctor, who's doing the surgery. It's the same sort of thing. Obviously it's not the same thing, but it's the same sort of thing. It's a serious situation that is going to probably determine the course of someone's life. So it's taught me definitely dealing with people, helping trying to put people at ease as much as possible, explaining things in as simple a way as possible, because it's very easy to explain legal principles to a lawyer. You need to explain them as if you're explaining them to a 5-year-old, so simplifying concepts in that way. And also just that accountability. So people, just holding you accountable and doing the best job you can do for them, rather than just turning up and going, I'm a bit tired today, I could probably just coast this one. You never have a day like that. So, yeah.
Do you feel a lot of pressure doing that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it varies. It's the same with any job, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If you get given a big project in any job, you're going to feel more pressured, because it's a level of responsibility that perhaps you haven't had before. And that's the same with cases. You do smaller cases, you can do them with your eyes closed, you can do them in your sleep, because you're used to doing them. It's like then you move to a bigger case, and it never gets easier. You just get better. Yeah. So for everything.
So moving on, SAS Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
It looks fucking horrible. Why apply?
I think because this is the only way I can explain it. I spent sort of 10 years of my life devoted to sort of ticking off all the things that you are told by society you should do. So it's like, right, you're at school, go to university, or get a job. Right, I'll go to university then. Right, do well at university. Right, what am I going to do now? Right, get a good job. Go and get you a good job. Right, earn the salary. Right, I'm earning the salary. Right, get yourself a nice watch. I'll get myself a nice watch. Done that. Get yourself a nice car. Okay, get myself a nice car. Buy the house. Have the family. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you get to a position you're like, hang on a second, like this is society been telling me what I needed to do for all that time, and all of a sudden, like, I feel like I've lost a sense of who I actually am. Like, I feel like I've lost a sense of who I am as a man in society. I feel like I've become domesticated. I feel as if somebody's told me that these are all the things you need to do, and all of a sudden I've rocked up somewhere in a situation and I don't really know who I am anymore and what society has told me I should be. And I think the problem I think a lot of men have nowadays is that it's just, unfortunately, like, blokes are, in my view, wired in a particular way. We need, and I'm not saying this isn't the same for women as well, but in relation to blokes, we're wired in a particular way. We need challenges, and I think we also need conflict as well. Okay, that's why people, like blokes in particular, enjoy boxing, enjoy mixed martial arts. And I'm not saying women don't enjoy it as well. There are women out there who are great at those things, but predominantly they attract men. And I think that's because of the challenge. I think also because of the conflict, because of the danger, because of the risk. Okay.
I might have to pause it.
I'm back. So you were just talking to us about the mentality of men and the way sort of society of almost pigeonhole men and sort of things like that.
So the reason why I applied for SAS was because I'd spent the last 10 years of my life ticking off all the things that society tells you need to do. All the milestones that society tells you need to achieve, get the good job, pass the exams, get the good job, get the nice car, get the nice watch, get the nice house, start the family, and then all of a sudden you tip up and all of a sudden you're in your 30s and you look at it and think, hang on a second, I've spent the last sort of 10 years of my life doing all these things that society tells me I need to do, and if I have all these things I'm going to be happy. And you actually look at it and say, am I happy with what I'm doing? And I'm not saying I wasn't happy with my life, but there was definitely felt like something was missing. I felt like that sort of angry young man had all of a sudden become pretty domesticated, and I didn't really know how it had happened. I felt soft, really. And I think the problem is that, as I was saying, is that with guys in particular, people in general, but men in particular, I think particularly nowadays, we don't have that opportunity, I think, in the way in which we're hardwired, which is for risk and for sort of competition and conflict. And we don't have a lot of outlets for that in modern society. I mean, you can go into sport and you can do it. And like I was saying, like in particular, fighting and mixed martial arts and boxing, doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and that sort of thing, I think it particularly attracts men in particular, because it offers an outlet for that aggression. It offers an outlet for that competition, for that conflict. And so I kind of reached the fork in the road in terms of my life at a relatively early age, because I was only, I'm only 34 now, so what was I, 32, 33 at the time I applied to go on SAS. And I thought to myself, I really need to do something here which is going to push me, because I've spent the last 10 years of my life just going soft. I need to do something that's properly hard. I need to properly push myself outside my comfort zone. Now, and the other thing is that in a big way over the last few years, I've got into fitness. So I do a lot of CrossFit, so I thought, what can I do that will kind of challenge me, use that skill set and that fitness that I've developed through CrossFit, and just push me to a new place in terms of my mindset, in terms of my physicality, and just harden me up so that I'll be able to, withstand more and see what actually I'm really made of after I've finished the process. So that was the reason why I applied, because I'd become soft.
Okay, so
that's
what did
big accountability on your side to see that in yourself and to challenge yourself that way. So big up for that.
Yeah. So when you were in there, did you know what to expect?
So I watched the previous series. The difference is when you watch it on TV, you think to yourself, I could do that. It's easy sat in a safe and comfortable environment with your cup of tea and your bourbon biscuits to look back and you're watching these people do it and say, I could do that. Oh, what's that idiot doing? I could do it better than that. But what you don't see, in fact, is that first of all, you're not sat in your chair in your bourbon biscuits. Okay, you're in a really high stress environment. There is zero downtime. So when people say, when the cameras stop rolling, like what happens then? Cameras never stop rolling. They're on 24 hours a day, and you don't have a script, you don't have a schedule, you don't know what's going on. So even when they sit you down, they say, right, we've done that exercise, like go back to the accommodation. You go back to the accommodation and you don't know whether you're going to be in there for 5 minutes. You don't know whether you're going to be sat there for 3 hours waiting for the next thing to happen. And usually, as soon as you let your guard down, because bearing in mind they've got you on camera the whole time, as soon as you let your guard down and everyone starts to relax, bang, they're in, and they're like, right, everyone get out on the parade square, we're doing this now. So it's having to keep your head in the game like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for however long you can last in that process. And that's the hardest thing, is that you never get a moment where you can just switch off. You're constantly on high alert, you're sleep deprived, you've had no food, and all of those things just make the whole process just that much harder. You think about it, you go to the gym, usually after you've had 8 hours, 10 hours sleep or whatever at night, you get up in the morning, you have your protein shake, you eat your oats, you come back, you have another protein shake, you eat a big lunch, and you're fully fueled. Now, do that, the hardest workout you've ever done, do it hour after hour after hour, never knowing when it's going to end, so no one's telling you what the set size is, so just start doing push-ups, and they'll tell you when to finish. Okay, so that might be 10 push-ups, it might be 200 push-ups, you don't know how many it's going to be. You may be running for 10 minutes, you might be running for 4 hours. No one tells you, so you have no idea as to how to process it and how to pace yourself. And then throw into the mix no food. Like, you start off, they feed you reasonably okay. By the end of it, you're on no food, nothing. Like a handful of nuts to last you for 3 days. You've got water, and that's pretty much it for the last few days of the process. You're on no sleep, so as soon as you fall asleep, they come in and wake you up. If they're not waking you up, you're scheduled to do night watch. If you're not scheduled to do night watch, you just can't sleep anyway, because you're effectively sleeping on a bit of canvas stretched between two poles, so it's really uncomfortable. So maximum getting sort of 2-3 hours sleep a night, if that, usually broken. And throw all of that in with the extreme stress and pressure they put you under, and then not knowing what's happening or how long it's going to happen for. And even for the most physically able people, that breaks a lot of people.
Yeah. Did you learn anything about yourself whilst being in there?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, to be honest, you learn a lot about yourself in pushing yourself to the edges of your capability. Like, there was never a point in time where I ever thought I'm going to quit here. So it made me realise how much I can take before I'll ever sort of throw the towel in. And I'm not entirely sure. I mean, somebody could definitely break me, but it doesn't feel as if somebody could break me. It feels like the only person that could break me after that process is me. As soon as I turn my internal dialogue on myself, that would break me. But something coming from the outside, that wouldn't break me. They'd have to get into me and get me to break myself. That's kind of what I learned, which is that, in fact, if I don't take on that negativity, if I don't internalize it, no matter what the situation is, it's going to be difficult for them to break me externally. They have to sort of get on the inside, and I can break me, but you can't.
Okay. Was there any other point where they tried to do that? They kind of saw it in you, or you felt like they were starting to understand you a bit more, as what made you tick and not? Because they do try to push your buttons a lot.
Oh, 100%.
That's what it looks like that on the outside, anyway.
That's definitely what they do, and they're very adept at doing it, because they're not psychologists, these guys, but they do. They're watching you 24 hours a day. They're getting feedback, no doubt, from the producers, although I don't know that's necessarily the case. They're seeing you in quite a high pressure, high stress environment, and all of a sudden they can start getting underneath your skin. And especially when things go wrong, what typically happens is things go wrong and the doubt creeps in, the fear sets in, that they've done something wrong or they're getting criticised. And all of a sudden you start an internal dialogue saying, fucking hell, what have you done there? Like, you've messed that up. And all of a sudden, whilst you're worrying about the thing that you've just messed up, you're messing up the thing you're doing next, and all of a sudden that creates more negativity. And before long, it's very easy to just sort of like tap that, glass, and for the whole thing to just shatter, because cracks are starting to form. And that's the way in which they do it. So it's recognising that when something goes wrong, you need to kind of just compartmentalise that, put it in a box, push it to the back of your mind, and move on with the next thing. Because I saw it time and time again with other recruits. As soon as they started questioning their own ability because something had gone wrong, or as soon as they started thinking, as soon as anybody even verbalised it, that, this is too hard, I can't do this, that was the moment they were gone. As soon as they said it out loud, that was it. You knew they were going to quit. And that happened time and time again. So it was recognising that. But the DS and the SAS guys that obviously run the show, they know that. They know as soon as they can get you to question yourself, if they can get you to do it enough, you can internalise that doubt, then they know they'll break you.
Yeah. So you had a pretty tough moment in the show where you were singled out as the least trustworthy person in the group by a number of recruits. What was that moment actually like to actually go through, and then two, what sort of questions did that throw back to yourself afterwards?
Well, again, this is not something you saw on the programme, because obviously they focus on different storylines depending on how the programme's going and what show they want to create week on week.
Sure.
But what kind of prompted that was, in fact, the boxing match that we had to do. So before that point in time, like, you'll have seen it, where they get you to fight somebody that you're friends with. You pick somebody from the group and you have to get in the ring loosely, put on gloves, and then just duke it out really for however long, until the DS say stop. And the whole point is that you're meant to just attack. You're not boxing, you're not defending, it's just attack. They just want to see raw aggression, and they want to be able to see it from the second they say go to the moment they say stop, and they want you to switch it off. So it's to show controlled aggression, but raw aggression, no matter whether it's against your best mate or against your worst enemy. And I guess the thought process behind that is that, I guess the SAS guys, for example, when you read some of their books, they've been in situations where they've had to shoot somebody in front of a kid, or they've had to take out a woman with a suicide vest on, or whatever it might be. And it's to turn off what society tells you in terms of the direction of your aggression, that you could direct it for some people, but you shouldn't direct it against others, and to kind of turn that off to see whether or not you are somebody that can switch that aggression on and do what's necessary in that moment, regardless of what's in front of you. And I've always had quite a lot of aggression inside me. I'm a pretty laid back guy. It doesn't come out very easily, but it is there, and I can turn it on pretty much like a tap. If somebody confronts me and it needs to go on, it comes pretty easily for me. And it's pretty ferocious, I'm honest. Like, people that have seen it in me, they say it's a scary thing. I change very much as a person when I find myself in that situation, but I'm very good at controlling it. I don't don't need to exercise it very often in my life, but when I do need to exercise it, it's like a whirlwind. It just comes out. And so when the DS sort of put us in that situation, they said, like, got it gloved up. Everyone at that point has seen me as like, well educated, well spoken, jokey Rick who's got a good job and is probably a bit soft in the middle. And I got called out for the fight. I was like, right, fine, like, we'll go against Mike Macy, who was a guy that I really liked on the program, who's done a lot of work on his own aggression issues, because obviously that's something that had led him into problems in the past. And actually, it was probably for TV the perfect matchup, because you've got a guy who's worked incredibly hard at suppressing his aggression because it had led him down negative corridors, as someone who had spent years channeling aggression because it had taken me down positive corridors. But people who had both experienced similar sort of problems. I know Mike, for example, said he'd had times in his life where he'd experienced conflict and bullying and the effects of that. And so Mike selected me to fight, and the DS said go, and it's in Ant's book. I just let rip, like it turned on like a tap. And I think everybody, the DS didn't expect to see it. They thought I was, sort of Mr. Nice Guy, probably never had a fight in my life. And the rest of the recruits were like, wow, like, you just changed. It was like looking at a completely different person. Your eyes went completely different. You just changed. And I went super aggressive for, 2 minutes. And, in the end, like, knocked Mike down a couple of times. And then Ant calls end to the process, and then we all walked off. And I went from being Mr. Nice Guy to Tasmanian Devil for a couple of minutes, back to just Mr. Nice Guy again. And I could switch it from that to that, no matter what the situation was and if I needed it. It did affect me doing that, because I really liked Mike, and having had to direct that aggression to him, it upset me a bit that I'd been able to do it so easily, but I knew it was in me. And then after we'd done that, all the rest of the recruits were like, took a bit of a step back from me, as if like, well, if you can do that to him, what would you do that to us? Do you know what I mean? And we'd had a rugby match as well during the same process, and I'd completely flattened one of the girls. Like, a lot of the lads were just, pussyfooting around. Like, the girls would get a rugby ball, and it wasn't a rugby ball, it was a tyre. Yeah. And the lads would just try and push them off it. Esme, who's 5 foot, got the hold of the tie, and I literally grabbed her and threw her across the field. She landed on her back and looked up at me, and I was like, I'm really sorry. But I did what was needed in that moment in time. And I think for the next couple of days after that, I think the rest of the recruits were like, hang on a second, this guy's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde character, like, can we trust him? And that's where that came from. And obviously then we had the vote, and I was voted one of the least trustworthy people in the group. There was 3 or 4 people that all got the same number of votes, but obviously it makes good TV to single out one person as if I got all the votes, and that's not what happened. Okay. I think I got 3, and about 3 other people got 3, and then a load of other people got 2. So it wasn't as if like, I'd end up with like 15 votes and everyone else ended up with none. But then Ant called me in and asked me and said, why do you think this has happened? And after a little bit of cajoling, I said it because of the boxing match, and he was like, yes. He was like, if we can see it, why can't you see it? Like, why are you letting it affect you? Because this has all come from the fact that you did exactly what we told you to do in that moment, and the others couldn't do it in the same way that you could do it. And in that moment, I kind of understood more about why that had happened, whereas before, when I was called out as being the least trustworthy, I kind of questioned myself a lot. Is this because people don't like me? Is this like going back to my childhood where people didn't like me, so I got picked on? Is there something fundamentally wrong with me that people don't like? So going into that room with the DS, who'd obviously witnessed the whole thing unfold, and sort of they'd planted that seed there to see how it would grow, they'd identified that the place that mistrust had come from was the fact that I'd gone from being one persona in one moment to being something completely different for 2 minutes. And it was that aggression that caused it.
Yeah. Did the show, has it changed the course of your life? Has it changed what you want to do with your life, how you want to challenge yourself, what you aspire to be? Has it changed anything?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think because up until that point in time, I don't think you necessarily, until you've done something really hard and something really sort of severe, it's difficult to know exactly what you're made of. In day-to-day life, just, getting up, going to work, going to the gym, pushing yourself within the confines of what you're comfortable with is one thing. But handing control over completely to someone else who will relentlessly push you until you break or until they can't push you any further is a completely other thing. You'll never do it to yourself in day-to-day life. You'll never learn what you've got in reserve until somebody else is making you do it. And the reality of it is nobody ever makes us do that in day-to-day life. Your personal trainer or whatever might make you do 5 more reps, but they're not going to make you submerge yourself and nearly drown you in ice cold water, or they're not going to flog you for hours and hours on end, crawling across rocks in the freezing cold or in snow with no sleep, and then put a bag on your head and you've got screaming babies in your ears and you'll be in stress positions and you get water poured over your head and all the rest of it. Doesn't happen in day-to-day life, nor should it. But unless you would put yourself in that position, and I guess it's the same with with athletes and things, until they're put in a position where they're in conflict with someone else and someone else is making them do something, making them push themselves to a state where they either defeat the other person or defeated themselves, then you just don't learn those things about yourself. You don't learn the limits of what you're capable of. And I still don't think I've learned the limits of what I'm capable of, because I didn't get there. I got close to my limits, but I didn't get to my limit.
That's quite interesting that you say that. You didn't feel like you were...
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was
close,
yeah. It's further than I've ever gone before,
yeah.
But I don't know how much is left. I don't know whether I was it felt like I was getting close to 100%, but is that just my mind telling me it's at 100%, or is getting to 90%?
Yeah.
Is there, in fact, if I can switch that off, is there a load more left in the tank? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a mad thought. It's we were saying before we turn the mics on, we've both listened to David Goggins' book.
Yeah.
And it kind of relates to exactly what you're saying. Like, people you don't really know where your limit is, but like sitting here talking to you, it's like I get the impression that you kind of want something to break you. Like, you actually want to find that challenge that'll actually be like, all right, yeah, fuck out.
Yeah, stop me in my tracks.
Yeah, just as I've actually. It's like you're looking for give me something that's going to break me now. Let's see what's out there, or not. I don't know. It might be the wrong impression.
I'm not a masochist. It's not like I.
No, I'm not saying you enjoy it. I'm saying you're looking for it.
I think that I just constantly would like to learn more about myself. Now I've set out on this journey where I feel like I know so much more about myself within a period of the last year. How much more can I learn about myself by pushing myself? Because it's only by pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone, which is constantly readjusted. At the end of the day, it's all relative. If you run 5k, if you start off and you've never run before, you run 5k, that's the furthest you've ever run. Okay. As soon as you hit 5k, you think to yourself, well, can I go to 10k? Once you've run 10k, you think to yourself, well, could I do a half marathon? For a half marathon, can I do a marathon? If I can do a marathon, can I do an ultra marathon? In an ultra marathon, can I do an ultra marathon in a weighted vest? If I can do an ultra marathon in a weighted vest, can I do an 5 Ironmen back to back? Do you know what I mean? There's always somewhere to go from there, and it just depends on where you've previously set your ceiling, because you only know what you're capable of by sort of reaching a milestone and knowing that you can go further. And so that's the reason why I like pushing myself. I feel like there's always more. At some point I'll get there and there won't be any more. That will be the limits of what I can give. But I feel like mentally and physically I've not been there yet.
What's the part that interests you the most to find out about yourself? The mental side, or what you can physically do? I know that they're a 1-2 combo.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. If I start running, the thing to put off the most is the little chat. Just turn the fucking treadmill off, mate. Just turn it off. Turn it off. That's the thing that niggles at me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I can't run on a treadmill.
Same thing. Just so I don't turn it off. But, so same question to you. Is it the battle with your mind? Is that the thing that you want to challenge and mould the most? Do you think that's the thing that really is the key for people? Is the mind?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, people say that your mind will give up before your body. That's what people always say. I don't necessarily believe that's true for me. I don't necessarily believe that's true for everybody else either. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, your body can do amazing things. It can do more than the majority of people would ever conceive that they're capable of doing. Most people start with a mindset of, I can't do that. Whereas I start with a mindset of, well, why can't I do that? I can do that. I can definitely do that. And there'll come a point, and I've failed loads of times. It's not like everything I try and do that I succeed at, and it's a massive success. I've failed at loads of stuff, but it doesn't mean that I stop. I'll do it again and again and again and again, and eventually it'll come right, and I'll succeed at that, and I can move on to the next level, as it were. But I genuinely believe, for me, my mind has got probably further to go than my body's got to go. And the reason why I say that is because, as I say, people always say your mind will give up before your body. When I was doing SAS, I pushed myself probably to my physical limit. When I finished SAS, I had a blood clot. It went to my lung. It's got a very high fatality rate. It's called the pulmonary embolism, and that could have killed me. I think 40% of people that develop one don't even make it to hospital. They just don't even know that they've had it. It just stops their heart and bang, they're gone. And I developed that as a result of probably pushing myself beyond what my body was capable of at that time. And my body's probably is capable of more than that. I just have to condition myself further towards that. But in fact, in terms of where I was at when I did SAS, I think my mind was better conditioned than my body was. And I was in really good nick. I trained sort of 6 days a week for the last 4 or 5 years. But I still think my mind was in better nick than my body was at that time, by virtue of the fact that I never got close to quitting. But when I finished, my body was like, right, I'm done. Like, you've pushed me to the very limits of really my mortality. My body got to the point where my blood had clotted in my veins, and it'd gone as far as it could go. If I'd pushed it further than that, I probably wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be sat here today. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's fucking crazy. I didn't know that. One thing that popped into my mind then was, do you feel like the way that the world is now, in terms of a lot of people's lives are online, that people see so much success that they're scared to fail? Because you were saying you failed and you just go at it again.
Yeah.
And I see it as the perspective of, you fail, and if you can learn from it, then that's it's still a win in itself if you can go and learn from it and move on. But do you feel like people are scared to go and push themselves these days because they're scared to fail? Because success is, you're surrounded by success if you turn your phone on.
Yeah, I think the problem is you're not surrounded by success. You're surrounded by a perception of success, because people only show you what they want you to see. So it's very easy to show, like, if you look at my Instagram, there's loads of lifting on there, Olympic weightlifting. And what do I put on there? I put on the 140 kilo clean, I put on the 120 kilo cluster, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And I'll put those on when I make the lift. I don't put it on when I've done it 15 times and I've been there for 2 hours and I haven't made a single lifter that way. It doesn't go on, does it? When people are having a bad day, I mean, that's, in a fitness example, but when people are having a bad day, like girls that, look like they're incredible on Instagram, when they wake up and they've got a massive spot on their face, or, the hair's a mess or whatever, they don't put it on, do they? So people see this highlight reel of other people's lives and they assume that that's just what's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in everybody else's life. And they look at their own and they think to themselves, well, hang on, like, why is my life not like that? It's because I'm not as good as them. Like, am I not worthy? And if I'm not worthy, then what's the point in even trying? Because they're smashing it every day of the week and I can't even smash it once in a blue moon. So I think, unfortunately, there's sort of two mindsets. You can either see that and see other people's success and think, I'm going to have a bit of that myself, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to be that. Or you can have another mindset, which is that it's all too much work. I can't do it. And the reality of it is that I truly believe that I'm capable of most things that I want to do if I can get the dedication to do it. Not the motivation, because motivation comes and goes, but being dedicated towards doing something. If I'm willing to put in what the goal demands, I can do it. So it's all mental.
Yeah.
If I can put in what the goal demands and I'm dedicated to do that, I will get the goal. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same for me as it is for you, or it is for you. It might be different. It might be more work for me, but it doesn't mean I can't achieve it. It just means that I've got to be able to put in what the goal requires.
Yeah. So, like you said, motivation is fleeting, but it's really discipline that's the kicker, right?
Yeah.
Like there's people, they're looking and they can watch like a motivational video online, and you're motivated for like 10 minutes, go to the gym maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's those like shitty days where you don't want to go, you don't want to do what you've got to do, and it's not really driven home to people that that's kind of the unglamorous side, the consistency, the discipline to go and just grind it out sometimes. Like you obviously can just fucking grind stuff out.
I think that's where the growth is them sessions that you don't want to do. That's where the growth is at, when you don't want to be there, you don't want to be in the gym and you force yourself to go.
Yeah, definitely.
That's when the growth happens.
You know what do they say? Like, well, nothing grows in the comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is when you're motivated, everything's easy. You know, when the adrenaline's flowing, you know, those reps feel easy. You know, it's when the adrenaline drops and your mind starts kicking in and saying, I don't really want to do this. You can either quit, and that's fine. Like if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But if you are actually dedicated to the goal you want to achieve, then it's not the motivation that's lacking. If you don't get there, it's the dedication that's lacking.
How important is it to set goals for yourself? Because we've had people come on a podcast and we've got into conversation. It's like sometimes you can't tell if people are setting goals to get there to show other people or to do for themselves. Like, is that because you set yourself a goal to get somewhere, to be a barrister, but you said you wanted to get to that fuck you level or whatever you want to call it. What did you actually describe?
Fuck you position.
Fuck you position. I like it. I actually fucking like that a lot. But how important is it to for people to understand themselves and understand where they actually genuinely want to go, not to go, oh, I bought a Rolex, I'm going to post that now. Or
it's not going to make you happy. The reality of it is something I realised after a certain period of time, and to be fair, it's only probably been in the last year or two, is that I was achieving things and I was like, I'm going to be happy when I get to this point. I'm going to be happy when I've shown them this. I'm going to be happy when I've achieved this. I'm going to be happy when I've got the Porsche, or I'm going to be happy when I've got that car, or this watch, or that house. You know, I'm going on this holiday and, you know, whatever. I've got this much money in the bank. And every time you get there and you're not happy, you're just not. Like, you get there and there's always something else. You think, right, I've achieved that now. Right, do I feel any better about it? No, I don't. You know, and that's because a lot of the time you're doing it to show somebody else, and so you achieve that thing, you're able to show that you've achieved it, and then all of a sudden it just feels hollow, and you think to yourself, well, hang on a second, well, what's the next thing? Like, maybe I'll be happy if maybe I won't be happy I've got the BMW, maybe I'll be happy if I get the Porsche. Well, I'm not happy with the Porsche, maybe I need the Lamborghini. You know, I haven't got the maybe I'm happy with the Lamborghini, I need that Bugatti. Do you know what I mean? There's always something else. It's not going to make you happy doing that if you are doing it for other people and to show other people. And for a long time, that was my motivation. I wanted to do things to show other people, to get myself into that fuck you position, so I could be like, well, you know, look at me, and in comparison to you, beating other people, competing against other people. And then I realised, probably only in the last year or two max, that in fact I can set myself goals that are things that I actually want to do because of the reward that I will feel at the end of them. So rather than setting goals because you want to show somebody, you want validation from somebody else, actually setting a goal because when you achieve it, you'll be able to self-validate from the feeling that gives you. You know, you'll be able to congratulate yourself. You will have a feeling of achievement because you set out wanting to do that in the first place, rather than doing something because somebody said that you couldn't, or doing something because you wanted to prove your parents wrong, or you wanted to prove your teachers wrong. Do things because you want to do them. If you can do that, then when you actually achieve it, you'll get a much longer lasting sense of achievement and satisfaction from doing it, because the rest of the time it's hollow. And now, by sort of silencing that need for validation, and we still all need it, like everybody wants somebody to pat them on the back and go, well done. And I'm not saying I don't need it at all, but I need it less now, because I've understood, in fact, I can look at myself and go, do you know what? Take a step back. If I was looking at me from somebody else's position, would I think I'm a success? Previously, I couldn't see it. I always thought I needed something else. Whereas now I can take a step back, and without being arrogant, I'm not saying I'm the biggest success in the world, and far from it. There's so many more levels that I can achieve before I even get close to some incredibly successful people. You know, and I'll probably never get there. You know, in another 10 years' time, I'll probably still be pushing to get, you know, further down that line, get to new levels. But if I took a step back for the moment and I was somebody else and looked at me, would I say he's doing well? Yes, I would. Would I give myself a pat on the back? Yes, I would. So why can't I do that for myself?
Yeah. So a question from that is, what have you implemented into your life to gain that perspective? What have you done? Anything like mindfulness, journaling? Like, what do you do to keep yourself in check? To say I'm happy day to day. Like, what do you put into your day to day to keep you kind of grounded, focused? You got your goals here, but you're grateful what you've achieved and what you're doing and how you're living and all that sort of stuff. How do you do that?
To be honest, I'm not a big believer. This might sound bad because I know loads of people are really into it, like mindfulness, and I'm not a big believer in that side of thing. I'm not particularly spiritual. I'm not religious. I perhaps live in the physical world more than perhaps I should. Perhaps like I should spend more time with the whole mindfulness thing, quietening my mind and meditation, that sort of thing. But it's not for me. The way in which I kind of do it is just to stop every now and again, and day-to-day life just can take over everything. There's so many things to be doing all the time that you can constantly be focusing on something else. There's always something else to focus on and immediately get something from. If it's not your job, then as soon as you get home, you need something to entertain you. You need TV to entertain you. If it's not the TV, it's your phone. And I'm probably one of the worst people for spending hours on my phone and that sort of thing. But every now and again, just taking a step back, taking a little bit of time out to yourself to think about what it is that you have, what it is that you've achieved, what it is that you want, writing things down, saying them out loud, so that, a lot of time people have ambitions and desires and dreams, and they're too scared to say them out loud because someone else is going to laugh at them for it, that no one else will understand it, or if I say it out loud, then it means that I've got to do it, and if I don't do it, then people think I'm a failure. For me, it's about taking those moments to reflect on the things that I've done, the things that I've got, the things that I want, and also the way in which I implement sort of getting towards those goals is, first of all, actually doing things that I now want to do rather than I feel obligated to do, and making myself accountable, and writing them down, saying them out loud, putting them on Instagram. Once it's out there, and I'm not saying Instagram's like, the be all and end all, but you're putting it out there to a wide audience.
Yeah.
You make yourself accountable for doing those things, but just make sure it's something you actually want to do. Don't put something out there because you think someone else is going to be impressed by it. Put something out there because it's genuinely something you're going to want to achieve yourself. And that's kind of how I've sort of adapted my mindset over the last couple of years.
Yeah, do you know what? Accountability comes up on this so much, and I think since we started like 18 months ago, it's been the one thing that's just hit home constantly, is like, keep yourself accountable. Like, you can't make excuses for stuff. You are really the director of your own life, and just if something fucks up, just be like, yeah, I fucked it, and I slacked off and I didn't do that, and just look at yourself in the mirror. Like David Goggins, go back to it, it's because listen to that accountability mirror, look at yourself, and really deep down, don't you have that nagging feeling of, I didn't really do that to the best of my ability. And
yeah, you definitely. I think the only thing is that it's really easy to sit somewhere and, if life's a mountain, not everybody starts at the bottom. Do you know what I mean? Some people start halfway up, some people start 5 meters from the top, but where you start doesn't determine where you finish. Mm-hmm. Some people start 5 meters from the top and they never get to the top. Some people start at the very bottom and they get all the way to the top. Some people start halfway and they get almost to the top. Do you know what I mean? It's just because of where you start from doesn't mean that what your goals are, you're not going to achieve them. And equally, even if you don't achieve them, it's not about necessarily always getting to the goal. It's about putting in the work to try and get there. If you fail, at least you've tried. Mm-hmm. You'll have learned something along the way, and it might not be help you in relation to that success, in relation to that particular mountain, but help you in relation to another one.
Yeah. I personally, I think that's the best part, the most beautiful part of life, is that, you can all start from a different, Julian's from Mauritius, mm-hmm. came over here at 10. I was born in Bradford. Yeah. We're together doing this podcast, however that happened, whatever. But what I'm getting at is, life actually just says, right, you can start wherever you want, but the effort card is unlimited. You can mm-hmm. put in fuck all or all of your effort, mm-hmm. and that's going to dictate where you get and where you go and what you achieve. And that's the thing that people kind of get bogged down at, is like, oh, why is that guy there? he went to a private school, so he's going to do better. All right, well, just work fucking harder.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a big thing. It's what I realised sitting with people, like, people started from all different walks of life, like all different areas, all different backgrounds, you know, rich, poor, upper, middle, lower class, and that's the biggest thing. Like, it's the effort, like you say, it's what you put in is what you get out, and you probably won't get ripped off by life if you actually work hard and stay committed. And
the thing is, there is no ceiling. No, there's no ceiling. You just make sure that you're progressing. Because the moment you stand still, and you're not always going to progress in a linear way, you know, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. There might be times when you've hit a particular goal and you think, oh, I'm there, and then all of a sudden it drops off and something happens in your life that's going to, you know, throw you a curveball and you're going to drop off. But as long as over a period of time, and you can look at chunks, don't look at it in days, don't even look at them in weeks, but, you know, if you could look at them in months and years and you feel like you're going in the right direction, that's the way in which you progress. Not day to day. You don't progress day to day. You progress over a longer stretch of periods of time. And as you say, the sky isn't the limit. You know, it's the limit is infinite. There is no limit. And yeah, you might have to try harder than somebody else. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean it's not achievable. There's some things that aren't achievable. You know, some things which are just physically not going to be possible for you. You know, like people. I think this is a problem with society: is people tell you can have whatever you want.
Yeah,
you can't. Have
We're not going to run a 2-hour marathon.
Exactly.
We're not going to do it.
You can't have it, but yeah, you can't have it because it's just not possible. It's not going to be possible for you, but that doesn't mean that the different success isn't possible for you. You know, you can't do everything that you might want to do. I'm not going to beat Usain Bolt in a 100-meter race. You know, it's just not going to happen for me. Yeah. But so long as you realise that, you know, success isn't necessarily the pigeonholes that you start off looking to fill, then, you know, hopefully you can not feel ripped off by life. Whereas, you know, I think the problem that people encounter in day-to-day life is that they're told you can be anything, you can achieve anything, and then when they don't achieve it, they think, well, something must be wrong with me. Like, I must not be good enough, I must not be worthy, and that's not the case. Just some things you're not going to achieve. And that sense of sort of, you know, that sense of being told in society it's special. You're not special, no one's special, no one's born special. You know, most of the time it's a case of you're going to end up failing at lots of things. And you're not going to be able to have all the things you want, but you're going to be able to have different things, and they're going to be different things than other people have got, and they're going to be different achievements, and they're going to be personal to you. And it's not allowing that sort of mindset to get you down, that, you know, if you don't achieve everything, don't be spoon-fed and believe that whole mantra of you can do everything, you know, you can do anything because you can't. Yeah. And that might sound negative, but it's not meant to be. It's just meant to be realistic.
Yeah.
Now, one thing else to add to that, and I think you've mentioned it as well, is that you have to go through turmoil to grow. Like, and I think that's what a lot of people get stuck upon. They don't want to change that job that they're always complaining about. They don't want to they want to lose weight, but they don't want to go to that run. So it's you need to push yourself out of the comfort zone to get anywhere with life, and business is exactly the same.
I think the problem is that we're conditioned to survive, aren't we? You know, through evolution, we're conditioned to do something that's just going to keep us alive. So once you get into a position where you can be comfortable, your evolution tells you don't change it because it kept you alive yesterday, and it kept you alive the day before that, and it kept you alive the day before that. And your biology says to you, if it's keeping you alive today and tomorrow, that's all I really want you to do. Just stay alive longer and longer, because then you get to procreate, and then you get to live longer, and, you know, just keep you alive, passing on your genes. And the reality of it is that, you know, we don't have the same risks and dangers that we had in you know, times gone by when we were living in caves and saber-toothed tigers were going to kill us if we went out try and catch a gazelle or whatever we were doing. But that sort of nature within us to try and just keep doing what we did yesterday because it keeps us alive, keeps us in the same path and doing the same things that we were doing previously, even if we hate them. So you do the job that you hate, and it takes people ages to ditch that job that they hate because their biology is telling them to keep doing it. It's putting food on the table. You know, their consciousness is telling them to keep doing it. And it's sometimes breaking away from that and realising that, in fact, it's probably not going to kill you. You know, if you don't do this, if you hate it, you're the only one that can make that change. And the reality of it is, it probably won't kill you.
Yeah. So moving on to stuff that won't kill you. You've done a couple of pretty intense fucking challenges in recent times.
Yeah.
So the first one was with the. Do you want to? You'll describe it better than me. So you had a barbell on your back, and
so it's
it just looks fucking horrible.
40 kilo barbell across my shoulders, and carried that with my good friend and oppo from SAS, James. Big guy that everyone called Rupert. Me and him both carried 40 kilos each on a barbell at Mount Snowdon in June, and that was horrible, like genuinely horrible. Just a whole world of pain.
Destroyed after that.
That's the thing. It's not actually the weight of it. It's that constant pressure on your neck and your shoulders. It was just relentless. And then every time you put it down, it just got heavier and heavier and heavier to pick back up. And the weather conditions were terrible. So like the first part of the day, it was nice and sunny and everyone was in good spirits. And we got halfway up the mountain and the weather turned. There was like 60 mile an hour crosswinds. It was absolutely throwing it down. I'm there in a pair of shorts, carrying this bloody barbell up the mountain, thinking, what the hell am I doing here? Every step you're taking forward, you're taking two sideways because you're just being blown across the mountain. It was grim, absolutely grim.
And you did that for?
So Kidscape charity, which is the anti-bullying charity that I'm an ambassador for now. So I did it for them. We raised a decent amount of money. I think we raised about 1,1600 quid for that one.
Nice.
So that was good. That was brutal. It just wasn't particularly well thought out.
I was going to say, come on, tell us whose idea was it to strap that onto you? Was it yours?
It was mine, yeah. I'm not entirely sure why. I thought to myself, this will be tough. And
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, wasn't wrong. It was just physically very hard. Yeah. And
then you've just come back from, or recently
So last week, yeah.
Last week, exactly. It's fresh off the back of Sahara. There you go.
Yeah.
That's how bad my handwriting is. Sahara. So you did 52 miles. Yeah.
52.4, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't forget the 4.
0.4. Yeah. Don't forget that. That'll be the hardest one.
That was enough.
The last 0.4. So again, like, where did the idea come from? Why? Obviously, we know why. For charity, for great cause. But what's the? Whose idea was that?
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of wanted to do something else that was tough. I'd kind of always looked at wanting to do the Marathon des Sables, which you probably heard about, which is they say it's the hardest foot race on earth. I think it's like 6 marathons in 7 days or 7 marathons in 6 days or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that was really expensive to do. So I was like, okay, can't do that one. So I was looking at different alternatives and this one came up. And so I signed up to do that. And as if that wasn't going to be hard enough to run 52.4 miles in the desert in like 30 to 40 degree heat, I thought to myself, right, okay, I want to raise the maximum amount of money as possible for Kidscape. So I put it on that I was doing this ultra marathon across the desert, thinking, right, okay, everyone's going to jump on board with this. And I don't know what it is. Maybe people are either just inherently tight, or whether it's because people perhaps assume that these things are going to be easier for me than they are for other people. I don't know. But the fundraising started pretty slowly. And I think the problem is as well is a lot of people had donated to my barbell challenge, which was, people have been super generous on that. And it's difficult. You can't constantly be asking the same audience. People just keep putting their hands in their pocket time and time again. So actually over the first few weeks of me fundraising, I was like, it's not really raised a lot of money, this. Like, it's going to cost me X amount to get out there. And in fact, I probably would have just been better giving that money to the charity rather than going out there and doing this and trying to raise this money for the charity. I'd only raised like a few £100. So I thought to myself, well, how could I perhaps generate a bit more interest in it? So I was like, right, I'm going to do it in a 10 kilo weight vest. So I'm going to run 52 and a half miles in a 10 kilo weight vest. That'll do it. So I was like, right, if I hit £2,000, my fundraising target, I'll do it in the weighted vest. So I put it on Instagram, a few extra £100 trickled in, nothing amazing, like it was still pretty low. I was like, oh no. Like, not only have I said I'm going to do it in a weighted vest, but I have to reach the target to do it in a weighted vest. I'm not going to reach the target, it's a bit embarrassing. So I'd probably only had like maybe 600 quid in the fundraising account by the time a couple of weeks before the challenge was due. And obviously I'd said I'd only do it if I raised £2,000. I was like, right, fuck it. Like, I put on Instagram and said, right, I haven't raised the money, still doing it in the vest. And all of a sudden, I think everyone was like, okay, like, I like this. You know, he's not made it conditional now. Like, even though he doesn't have to do it in the vest, he's going to do it in the vest. And all of a sudden, my fundraising went from like £500-600. It's like £800, £900, you know, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, 1,800. You know, and all of a sudden, it just started like ticking up. And actually, just before I went, literally, I was about to get on the plane. It hit the £2,000 mark. Yes. So I actually legitimately hit the target that I wanted to hit for the vest to go on. And then it didn't stop. It kept going. I think I've raised a decent amount, over £2,000 now. And obviously, if anyone's listening to this, they want to donate. The link's still in my profile. But so that was kind of how the marathon itself came about. And then that's how the craziness of putting on a 10 kilo body armor vest came about.
And how many weeks prior to that was it that you decided you was going to wear the vest?
So I originally put it out there probably about 6 weeks before we was going to do it, to try and generate that interest, and it didn't have the desired effect. And then it was probably only maybe a week or 2 weeks before that I was on still on a few hundred quid, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do it in the vest anyway. And it was at that point that it just went ticked up. And, you know, hit the level literally the day that I left to go to Morocco. So, yeah, at that point I had no excuse. Put the vest on, get it done.
Must have been sweating like mad in that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, it was a bit stinky afterwards.
How was it doing that challenge? Was it? How did it compare to the Snowdon challenge?
So different. So the Snowdon challenge was just really uncomfortable. Like, it wasn't physically exhausting, the Snowdon challenge. It was just really painful. It was a really painful challenge to do. It's physically tough, but more so just dealing with the pain and the fact that your body just wants to say, take this bloody barbell off me, because it's just genuinely hurting. The Sahara was different in that it was just exhausting. It was relentless. The scenery was really beautiful. But once you've seen one sand dune and one palmery and, you know, one desert road, you've pretty much seen them all. So, you know, the first hour is like, oh, it's all really interesting. Look at all these cactuses and palm trees and all the rest of it. Oh, look at that desert, look at that sunrise. And then by like mile 15, you're like, just get me out of the fucking desert. Like, it's just literally the same. Like, there's just more rocks, there's more camels, there's more sand, and all the sand looks the same. And your brain's just going into sort of like it feels like you're just doing the same thing again and again.
It's like in Scooby-Doo. It's running past
just
the
running
same three things.
Yeah, exactly. So mentally, actually, I think it was, well, first of all, it was exhausting. It wasn't painful, but it was just physically sapping. And it was just mentally draining as well, because it's just boring. Like, running is boring. Running in an environment which never seems to change is just even more boring.
Had a wet vest on top of it as well.
Yeah,
there you go.
Just like flapping around, you know, jiggling all over the place and stopping your breathing. That just made it all the more irritating, if I'm honest.
So, for the future, what are your plans? Are you going to do anything else as fucking obscene like that, or like what is it, to give people a bit of an insight? What's coming up? Like, probably, you know, this is going to go out pretty quick after we record. So yeah. What's coming up, like 2020?
So, I mean, I've got a few things that I want to do, a few different opportunities come my way, a few different ideas that people have floated with me. So I'm just trying to get, I mean, the problem is the logistics in a way, but I was trying to arrange doing an Everest rope climb in the Trafford Centre. They've kindly gifted me the space, but unfortunately the insurance and planning side of things is a bit more complicated. But I'll be doing repetitions of a rope climb until you reach the height of Everest. So on a 5 metre rope, just to give you an idea, it would be about 1,800 rope climbs.
You started.
Hands are going to be this.
The other thing I want to do is that me and my oppo James, I was telling you about, did Snowdon with me. We were talking about rowing the distance from sea level to space. So it's like 60 odd miles continuously on a rowing machine, which is actually really, mind-numbingly and ass-numbingly boring. But again, it gives that sort of physical distance for people to identify with, you know, from sea level to space. Mm-hmm. Do that on a rowing machine. Why a rowing machine? I don't know. But yeah, going that distance. So that's another thing. And then another couple of things I like to do. So, you know, talked about perhaps going out and doing I think it's called the Wadi Run out in Jordan, which is another desert event, 250 miles, doing that. Or perhaps me and again my oppo from SAS James have talked about, perhaps canoeing, so kayaking from London to Paris, so down the Thames, across the Channel, up the Seine, into Paris. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, there's a few things to think about. Talking to doing a couple of things with perhaps a couple of the people that sort of do this type of thing on Instagram. So yeah, watch this space and we'll see what's going to come next.
Yeah, we definitely will. So if people want to find you, they want to get in touch, they want to see what you're putting yourself through.
So you can find me. Instagram's the one I use the most. So it's rick.m.stevens, Stevens with a V. You can find me on there. Yeah.
Well, thank you for travelling. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Not at all. Loved it.
Cheers.
Yeah,